Hi, it's Krista at The Secret Yarnery. Today we are making easy crochet granny squares for absolute beginners. If English isn't your first language, you can click this gear on the video and scroll through to find your preferred dialect. And this easy-to-follow step-by-step crochet tutorial is available in both right and left-handed, so please check the description box below to find the version that suits you best. If you're an absolute beginner looking to learn how to crochet, this Easy Crochet Granny Square slow motion guide is perfect for you. But everything I teach you, you can do anytime you like. So I'm going to teach you how to join and continue with the same yarn, and then how to finish off and join a second yarn. And you can do that every row, every 2 rows, or whenever you feel like it. So we can make all of these different granny squares, even more combinations, from this tutorial today. It's all about when you want to change yarn. And you can make your granny square any size you like. All you do is just keep going doing the row repeat until the granny square is the size you want it to be, or you can stop whenever you like. The trick to making lots of granny squares is to make them the same amount of rows. And you can tell if you just put your fingers into the corner spaces of 2, they should line up. All of those spaces in between the granny squares should line up, and those are the same size, and then they're really easy to join together. And I have a heap of other granny square tutorials as well, so if you catch the granny square bug and want to make more, I will link the playlist for these and more in the description box underneath the video. And if you want to follow along with written pattern, all of my patterns are written in plain English and available on my website, secretyarnery.com. To make your first ever granny square for absolute beginners, you are going to need yarn. Pick a yarn that is light color, no texture to it, so you don't want any fuzz or any lumps or bumps. You just want a nice smooth yarn. Grab your favorite color, but grab a light shade of it. You don't want it to be a dark yarn, and you don't want it to be like a super white yarn either. So a nice soft color or a bright color is great. And your yarn ball is also going to tell you what kind of hook you're going to need. For yarn labels that don't have crochet hooks, they just have knitting needles. Usually I go up 1 size. So I am using this favorite from Ice Yarns. It's a size 4 worsted weight yarn, and it asks for a 5mm knitting needle. So I'm going to be using a 6mm crochet hook with this yarn. So whichever yarn you have on hand, just use the hook size recommended on the yarn label. If you don't have a needle yet, just leave your tails a bit long, so when you do get a needle, you can go back and sew them in. And yes, you do have to sew them in because it will undo in the wash or when it is stretched. So a needle is really important. You can use as many colors as you like. I tell you how to change colors in the tutorial, so you could change colors every row, or you can just use 1 color. But I will show you how to change colors if you want to. You will also need a crochet hook. For my 4-weight worsted acrylic, I'm using a 6mm hook. You will also need a pair of scissors, a needle for sewing in your ends, and a stitch marker. And if you enjoy this tutorial, please subscribe to my channel for more. Here are the timestamps. You can jump back into where you left off, and let's get started. We're going to start by making a slip knot any which way you normally do. Just a slip knot. So we have our tail and our loop of yarn. And the yarn that is coming from the ball of yarn, that is the adjustable bit. The tail doesn't move when you shrink down your loop. So pop that loop onto your hook and chain 3. So just wrap your yarn, turn your hook so it's facing down, and chain 3. Now into the first chain we made. So to count your chains, we just count these loops. There is 1, 2, and 3. We don't count what's on our hook, and we don't count that knot, just what's in between. So there is our very first chain right there. That's where we're going to put our hook in. So pop your hook in, and now take a minute. We want to get ourselves situated. Slide everything up onto the fat part of your hook. And we want our tail going down along with our work, and we want to hold that open, making a U shape. So I'm holding it open with my finger and thumb, and now we're going to slip stitch to form that ring. So grab your yarn, turn your hook facing down, and slide it through both of those loops. And push it up. We always want to be pushing our loops up onto the fat part of our hook so they stay the same size. I'm still holding that open, so don't let go of that center of your ring. And chain 3, so grab your yarn again, turn your hook, and chain 3. Now into the center of our ring, going over our tail, so just hold that tail along with your work. We're going to make 2 double crochets. So wrap your yarn into the center of that ring, right where your finger is holding it open. Grab your yarn and bring it back. Wrap and take off 2, wrap and take off 2. So there is our first double crochet, and our chain counts as a double crochet. So this counts as 2 double crochets. We want to do 1 more. So a chain plus 2 double crochets into the center of our ring. Just like that. Now chain 2, 1 and 2, and into the same center of our ring, going over our tail, 3 double crochets. And chain 2. 1 and 2. Grab your ring and grab your stitches and slide those back. You need some more room around your ring. All of our stitches need to lay side by side. Wrap your yarn and 3 more double crochets into the center of your ring, working over that tail. So just holding it along with your ring. Chain 2. Slide those stitches back if you need some more room, and 3 more double crochets into the center of our ring, still working over our tail. So wrap your yarn and 3 double crochets into the center of your ring. Chain 1, and we're going to make 1 single crochet to join. So just into the top of that chain 3. You can see your stitches if you just use your needle to follow those stitches up. There's 1, there's 2. The stitch right beside that is your chain, and you want to have 2 strands of that chain on the top of your hook for a nice solid join. So pop your hook into the top of that chain, 2 strands on the top of your hook, and make 1 single crochet to join. So bring your yarn back, wrap, and take off 2. And you want to just hold that spot open with your finger and thumb. Just like that. Chain 3, 1, 2, and 3, and turn your work. Still holding that spot open with your finger and thumb, and right into where you're holding it open, 2 double crochets. So our chain always counts as our first stitch. So wrap your yarn and 2 double crochets into that corner space. Now you can grab a stitch marker and just pop it into that same corner space. That's going to mark the end of the row where we need to finish off our round. And now we're going to jump over into this next corner space, straight from our last double crochet into the corner. So wrap your yarn and into the corner, we're going to do 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. So there's 1 double crochet. Here is number 2 and number 3. Chain 2, push your stitches back if you need some more room, and 3 double crochets into that same corner space. Into the next corner space, wrap your yarn, and we're going to do a corner. So 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets into each corner space. So these next 2 corners are getting a corner. 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. So wrap your yarn, 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets, all into the same corner space. No switching spots. Everything is into the same corner. Then we're going to jump straight over into the next corner space and do a corner, 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. And now our stitch marker is telling us that this is our corner space where we need to finish. It could look like we're just working along in a spiral and then you won't have a square. So this is really handy to put a stitch marker so you know where we are working our last stitches, right where that stitch marker is, not out here at the actual corner. So wrap your yarn and into the same space as that stitch marker, 3 double crochets. Now you can pop that stitch marker out. If you were finishing your granny square just with these 2 rounds, you would do a chain 2 and you'd slip stitch into the top of that chain to join. So you'd slip stitch right in here, just like a slip stitch, just like regular, popping your hook in and slip stitching and chaining 1 to secure your yarn. So that's how you're going to end the round if you are finishing. You just cut your yarn. To join and continue, we are going to chain 1, and we're going to make 1 single crochet into the top of that chain to join. 1 single crochet. That leaves us in the center of our corner, so our corner can always hide as we build our granny square. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and I'm holding it open with my finger and my thumb, and I'm just going to turn my work, still holding it open, and 2 double crochets into that same space, right where my finger is, right where we joined. 2 double crochets. And now grab your stitch marker and just pop it into that same space just to mark the end of our round. When we work around, that is where we're going to be putting our last stitches. So each space along the side, that's these new spots we have, these are getting 3 double crochets into each, and corners are getting the same 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. So sides are the new part of this round. Wrap your yarn and into that side space, right between those clusters, 3 double crochets. Into the corner space, 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. The space along the side in between those shells, right there, 3 double crochets. And into the corner space, 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. Into the space along the side, 3 double crochets. And into the corner, 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. Into this last side space, 3 double crochets, just into the space. And into that space with our stitch marker, we're going to finish off our corner. So 3 double crochets. And you can pop that stitch marker out even before you made those stitches. Just like that. And now we can do the same for the next round. So remember, if you're going to finish, chain 2 and slip stitch to join. If you're going to continue, chain 1 and join with a single crochet right into the top of that chain. 2 strands on the top of your hook. Just pop your hook in and make 1 single crochet. Just hold that open with your finger and thumb. 3 double crochets on each side, just so we know we're in the center of that corner. And make your single crochet. And chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. Still holding it open. Turn your work. And into that same space, 2 double crochets. If you worked over your tail, we can cut that off now. If you worked around it in the beginning. So for this round, we have 2 spaces along the side. The next round will have 3, then 4, then 5, and that's how you grow your granny square. It's the exact same pattern, just there'll be an extra shell every round as it gets bigger in the sides here. So every round, there'll be an extra space along each side, and that's how your granny square is going to grow. Now grab your stitch marker and pop it into that same space, just so we can mark the corner where we're going to be putting our last stitches of the round. Now each of these 2 spaces along the side, we're going to do 3 double crochets into each. So into this first space right there, 3 double crochets. And into the next space, 3 double crochets. Into the corner space, 3 double crochets, chain 2 and 3 double crochets. Into each of these 2 spaces on the side, 3 double crochets into each. Like that. And now we're at our corner. Corners always get corners. 3 double crochets, chain 2 and 3 double crochets, all into that same space. Into the next 2 spaces along the side, 3 double crochets into each. Now into our corner space, 3 double crochets, chain 2 and 3 double crochets, all into that same corner space. And now we just have our 2 spaces left along the side, and then of course where we joined, but each of these spaces along the side, both of these spots, these spaces, get 3 double crochets into each. Now we are back at our stitch marker. So into the same space as our stitch marker, and you can take that stitch marker out right now if it's in your way. 3 double crochets. Now I'm going to pop my stitch marker out. And I'm going to finish this yarn now and show you how to join a new color. So to finish, chain 2, 1 and 2, and into the top of that chain 3, right there, 2 strands on the top of your hook, we're going to slip stitch to join. So pop your hook in and slip stitch to join and chain 1 to secure your yarn. Now go ahead and cut your yarn. You want to leave about a 4-inch tail so you can sew that in easily with a needle later. Pull your hook up and your yarn through and snug that down to secure. And now I'm going to show you how to join a new color. And this is why I turn my work. This granny square here, I didn't turn my work, so all of my pretty stitches are facing the one direction. So one side, the stitches look like this, and the other side, they look like that. Why I turn my work is the squares stay nice and straight, so I put a needle through the center stitch on opposite sides, and if you turn your work, you can see that it's quite straight. And if you don't turn your work, that is the center there. It goes on an angle. So slowly it just starts twisting. So the outside is square, but the center has gone a little bit off. You can't totally tell until you join up your squares, and then you're like, oh, they're all twisted. So that's why I turn my work. We also want to turn our work before we join our yarn. So go ahead and just flip it over, and you can join your yarn in any corner that you have not joined yarn in the last round. So I join in the corner before my previous join, just so I remember to work over that tail when I get there. So just pop your hook in to the corner space before your join. Grab a loop of your next color yarn. You want about a 6-inch tail. And put that loop on your hook, bring it through that corner space, and slip stitch with both strands to join. Now we're going to drop our tail, but just hold it along the top edge of your work so we can work over it for a couple stitches. Chain 2, and that counts as our first double crochet. Now into the same corner space, 2 double crochets, same as we were doing before. And I'm working over that tail, just holding it along the back of my work. And we still have to sew that tail in with a needle, but at least we've got it underneath a couple stitches. Now drop that tail and into each space along the side. We have 3 spaces now because our granny square is bigger. Each of those spaces along the side gets 3 double crochets into each space. So now you are ready. You can pause the video and get caught up. 3 double crochets into each space along the side, and I will meet you when you get to your corner. Now when we get to our corner where our tail is, we just want to hold that tail going forward along our work so we can work over it. And we're going to do the same corner as we always have been. Corners, 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets, working over that tail. Now into this side, 3 double crochets into each of these side spaces. So each of those 3 spaces, we're going to do 3 double crochets into each. It'll look like that. You can pause the video and do 3 double crochets into each of these spaces right there, and I'll meet you when we get to our corner. Into our corner space, we're going to do a corner, 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. You can pause the video and do 3 double crochets into each of these spaces along the side. And into our corner space, 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. Now you can pause the video, 3 double crochets into each of these spaces along the side. Each of those gets 3 double crochets into each. And now back where we started, we are going to finish our corner into that same space. So into the same space where we began, 3 double crochets. If you're going to join and continue with this color, you will chain 1 and single crochet into the top of that chain to join. Hold that corner space open, chain 3, turn your work, and 2 double crochets into that same corner space. And then you would continue around as usual. For the next round, there would be 4 spaces along the side, and the round after that, there will be 5, then 6, then 7. The only thing that changes for granny squares and why they are so fantastic to do. If you're going to join an end, so you're finished with this color, chain 2, 1 and 2, slip stitch into the top of that chain 3, 2 strands of that stitch on the top of your hook. So just pop your hook in and slip stitch. Chain 1 to secure your yarn, and then leave yourself about a 4-inch tail so you can sew it in easily with a needle later. Pull your hook up and your yarn through and snug that down to secure. So now you just have to sew in your tails. I'll show you just how to do that. We join in the corner, and why? Because there's all those extra stitches to hide our tails, plus you don't see any step up along the way. So just thread your needle, and these sharp tip needles are so great. We just go through a couple strands at the beginning just to anchor my yarn. And I'm going to take it back through. I'm holding on both sides of those stitches, those corner stitches. So I don't want to feel my needle. because that means I might see this yarn and I want this yarn nice and hidden. I'm going to go through all of those stitches, just in the center. So you can't see it either side. Grab a new piece of yarn or go into a different spot all the way back through. And these sharp tip needles go through the fibers instead of around. You only have to do it twice. If you are using a blunt tip, you would want to go back again one more time. So 3 times back and forth, and that would also secure your tails. Now you can cut that tail off right where it comes out of your work. And do that for your other tail. And there is your first ever easy granny square for absolute beginners. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial as much as I did. I'm waiting for you in that video right there, and stay hooked.